I'm Celia Moss. I'm a consultant dermatologist at Birmingham Children's Hospital. So I see children with all sorts of skin conditions, eczema, scabies, warts, and vitiligo. And actually, I'm mostly retired now. So this series has been something that I'd always wanted to do and never had time to do. We're very hard pressed in the National Health Service. So it's been a bit of a retirement project, or one of my retirement projects. And I'm very grateful to the Vitiligo Society for giving me the opportunity to tell you about it, hoping that it will then reach the people who it's aimed at, the children. And secondly, for co-funding it with us, with Birmingham Children's Hospital. So, as I've said, I'm a consultant dermatologist, and we've heard a lot today about people seeing doctors not knowing what it is, trying different treatments, and in the end, kind of giving up a bit on the treatment. And as a doctor, I'm very, very conscious that we don't do well at all with vitiligo, along with many other conditions. And it's frustrating that we don't have much to offer, and I'm very conservative in my approach, and I try not to lead people to think that I have got something to offer when I haven't. I'm also very conservative with children, and sometimes parents, we've heard this a lot today, think they're the only person in the world. And I often say to a child, have you ever come across anyone with this skin thing that you've got? And they say no, and they think that they are the only person in the world. And so little children don't really access the internet. I mean, they do in a horrifying way perhaps, but they don't search in the way that adults would. I mean, we've heard today from people who've diagnosed themselves, have found resources. You've all found the Vitiligo Society, but small children don't do that. And what I felt they really wanted was a book, a little book with stories about other children that they could relate to help them cope with their condition. So the first one we did in the series was alopecia, and that actually was a great success and actually led to us developing a support group for children with alopecia, which has continued. And at the end, I'll just tell you again, but I'm hoping that this may kick off a support group for children with vitiligo. And we covered other conditions. It was a bit random. It was mostly which of my consultant colleagues said, oh yeah, I really want to do one of those, and yes, I've got the time to spend doing it. There was also the serendipity that I had a friend who was a children's writer who happened to have had alopecia herself and was very keen to get involved and was very good at interviewing children, and she's done the whole series with me. And so we've done conditions that are chronic, they're long-term, and that they do affect the way people look. So cleft lip and palate, obviously. Cochlear implant, that's bone-anchored hearing aids, which is apparent, it's visible. Ichthyosis, which is a scaly skin condition, and epidermolysis bullosa, which is butterfly children and children with a genetic fragility of their skin. And these booklets have been very popular. I think almost all of them we've done jointly with the relevant patient support group, and they have won some awards in the BMA Patient Information Awards process. So finally we got to vitiligo. This is one I always wanted to do, but somehow it kept getting others, came to the top of the list sooner. And so this is what we did. Now, I'm going to show you some of the children in the booklet, and you're all very welcome to take one or more copies of the booklet to use yourselves or to give to young people who may have this condition. Pranav was really the inspiration, the one who got this kick started. He's an intelligent boy in his teens, in secondary school, who has very extensive vitiligo. And I got to know about him because his mother's a doctor, and his mother had a colleague who's a friend of mine, and this friend told me that this boy's mother was very, very concerned about him. And it was this sort of dichotomy that we find sometimes, that actually I think it was more the mother's problem than Pranav's problem. Pranav was coping really well, but his mother really had a problem. And in Birmingham, where I work, we have a very mixed, ethnically mixed population, as you know, a lot of people from Pakistan, a lot of people from India, and of course it's more of an issue in that population, not only because it shows more on a brown skin or on a black skin, but also because of the cultural baggage that comes with it. And often parents would say, oh, my daughter's never going to be able to be married with this condition, or it's because of some cultural belief that it's happened. Very commonly, and I've talked to Jyoti's mother about this, there's a belief about diet, and they mustn't eat any white food, have white milk or fish, or eggs in one case, because this is what causes vitiligo, because it's white. All sorts of cultural stuff associated with it. Anyway, this was to some extent the case with Pranav, and one of the things they found was that it was very hard to go home to India, and he says, his mum says, it's a different culture over there. People ask very direct questions, they offer advice, it got very repetitive. Pranav wasn't happy, so in fact they tend to go on holiday somewhere other than India now. But a lot of these children said very truthful things, and one of the things Pranav said was, if people judge you because you've got vitiligo, they're not a true friend. It helps to find out who your real friends are. This is Tommy, who's a 5-year-old who enjoys all sorts of sports, and there he is roller booting with his sister, and his parents have a very positive outlook, and he's confident in his skin. And he showed Mandy, the writer who interviewed him, some photographs, and one day in the garden in the summer, when as a white kid, his skin showed up the vitiligo more when he got a bit of a tan. And he started messing about with a biro pen and drawing around the patches. And then he said, Tommy started drawing lines around his spots. So we joined in, said his mum. We drew all around them. It was fun. He said it tickled. He looked like an atlas and he loved it. And, that was just a fun thing to do, to show him that there was something special about his skin and that it was a good thing. Soraya is a dark-skinned girl who also has vitiligo, and again, she dances, she doesn't cover up, and has a very, very positive attitude, and is a very beautiful little girl, and acknowledges that you get upset sometimes, and it's important to talk to someone if you get upset. Olivia is another astonishing child. There's a picture in the booklet of her as Wonder Woman. And she's very extensively affected, and she again felt alone, but it started when she was 4 years old, and she says now she's a bit older, she notices other people with vitiligo. For instance, she sees a lady at the gym who has vitiligo. Olivia doesn't speak to strangers, she says, but we saw each other and we smiled. And that's, that comradeship that we find, and particularly in this society. Phoebe's another dancer, another outgoing girl who loves doing physical things, and again doesn't cover up. And she's a great fan of Winnie Harlow, whose YouTube video, A Skin Condition, Not a Life Changer, has influenced a lot of people, I think. And Phoebe is a great fan of hers. She thinks she's a wonderful role model, as does her mother, who also has vitiligo. This is Lucy, another girl who has lots of fun, that she's there with her granny and her younger brother. And it is in the family in her case, and there is a genetic pattern to it with her. She's someone who, again, it shows up when she gets a suntan, but it doesn't bother her too much. We do tend to advise people to protect their skin against the sun because, of course, it more easily burns the white patches. But even with sunscreen, most people will, if they expose their skin, will get a bit of a tan. So this is the series. Those are the booklets we've done previously, and if you're interested to look at them, all the previous ones are available on the internet. Vitiligo, my story, isn't yet because it's very hot off the press, and we're still in the process of getting consent for uploading from the families involved. This is our hospital, Birmingham Women's and Children's Hospital. So this is our hospital website. If you just search on my story, you'll get all the previous ones up if you're interested. So finally, I just want to tell you again that we're trying to kick off a little vitiligo support group for children. And I'm going to ask Kerry, our intern, to stand up. Kerry is over there. And Kerry and we're organising a tea party at Birmingham Children's Hospital in 2 weeks' time. And we hope that children with vitiligo will come along. There are some of these invitations at the back, and if any of you are in the West Midlands, we're very happy for adults to come along too, although we're primarily aiming this at children, but we're keen to get a group going. And if you're anywhere in the country and want to come along to that, if you've got a child with vitiligo, we'll be very, very pleased to see you. So once again, many thanks to the Vitiligo Society for making this happen and for funding it. Thanks very much.